King Shumeewamee and the Volcano of Mad by Yaged. Episode 3. The king wore a blue robe that looked like velvet and had a fluffy white collar. The king also wore a golden crown. The crown was a little tilted on his head, sort of like a baseball cap, but it was definitely a crown. Russ nearly jumped out of his skin at the sight of this king. Well, he would have jumped out of his skin if it were possible to do that sort of thing. It's not that Russ wasn't brave. It's just not a regular thing. How many times have you looked into the mirror and seen a king? Russ was a little afraid to look into the mirror again. Who knows what he would see this time? You might be thinking, why didn't he just run away? The truth is, he was also a little curious. How could you ignore a king? He crept slowly up to the mirror, took a deep breath to swallow his fear, then whispered, "Who are you?"
"I'm King Shumeewamee."
The voice answered from behind him this time. Russ spun around ever so quickly. Sure enough, standing in front of him, as clear as the lamp that had come smashing down into 1,000 little pieces, was this king. Russ stared at the king doubtfully. "Look, I'm too old for make-believe," he said.
"Wasn't it you who was just wishing for a superhero?" King Shumeewamee asked.
"That was private,"
Russ protested. "You shouldn't think so loud," King Shumeewamee suggested. "Besides, what do you need a superhero for? You're your own superhero."
"Yeah, right," Russ grumbled under his breath.
"It just takes the right attitude," King Shumeewamee encouraged.
Russ looked King Shumeewamee up and down. Who was this guy? Some weird alien version of a cheerleader or something? "What did you say your name was again?" Russ asked suspiciously.
"King Shumeewamee,"
King Shumeewamee said. "King who?" Russ asked.
"King Shumeewamee," the king repeated.
"King Salami?" Russ mocked. "Isn't there something else you go by? Maybe something a little shorter?" King Shumeewamee thought about this for a moment.
"Nope,"
he answered.
"King Shumeewamee it is. Would you like me to teach you how to say it?"
King Shumeewamee offered pleasantly. "I didn't say I couldn't say it." Russ crossed his arms defiantly.
"Here, repeat after me," King Shumeewamee encouraged. "King—"
"Anyone can say king," Russ sniped. King Shumeewamee wasn't deterred.
"Shoe, like what you wear on your foot," he continued.
Russ hesitated at first. He didn't want to look silly in front of a total stranger. He looked from side to side. The coast was clear. He didn't think Dodie was going to tell anyone. "Shoo," Russ almost whispered.
"That's it!"
King Shumeewamee grew even more excited.
"Me, not you, but me!"
"Me?" Russ mimicked.
"Wah!"
King Shumeewamee continued. "Like what you say when you're outside playing and your mother calls your name. Russell!" King Shumeewamee called. Russ thought about this one for a minute, then called back. "Wah, Ma!"
"Excellent!" King Shumeewamee cheered. "Now just drop the ma."
Russ hesitated again, then said, "Wah!"
"Wonderful, wonderful!" King Shumeewamee enthused. "Now continuing, not you, but—"
"Me!"
Russ exclaimed. "That's it, my friend. Now put it all together. King Shumeewamee!" The king cheered, waving his fist in the air.
"King Shumeewamee!" Russ cheered back, and he waved his fist in the air too.
"See what you can do when you put your mind to it," King Shumeewamee told him. "You know what they say about can't."
"No," Russ confessed. "What do they say about can't?"
"Can't," the king said, "is a 4-letter word."
"Oh." Russ thought about this for a moment, then scratched his side, and we all know what scratching can mean. "Is there something wrong with 4-letter words?" King Shumeewamee cleared his throat.
Never mind. We'll get back to that when you're old enough. Russ got a little angry. Maybe the king wasn't so cool after all. I want to know now! He raised his voice. All in good time, the king said. What are you doing here anyway? Russ's anger grew. What am I doing here? King Shumeewamee sounded surprised. Fun is what I'm doing here. Now come along. Where are we going? Russ asked. You may recall that seconds earlier, Russ was growing angrier and angrier. But curiosity is one of those things that can get in the way of anger. Russ wanted to get his way, but he wasn't willing to be so stubborn that he might miss out on some fun. That's called being practical. Russ had a bad temper, but he was willing to compromise since having fun was definitely better than being angry. And it was very clear to Russ that whatever else King Shumeewamee may have been, he was definitely interested in having some fun. The king began to rush off, and Russ chased after his cloak-tails, determined to keep up. Will you tell me where we're going? Russ asked more politely this time. Why, we're going to Shumeewa, of course, King Shumeewamee answered, his eyes glowing with excitement. Shumeewa? What's that? Russ asked. This is Shumeewa, King Shumeewamee said, snapping his fingers. There was a puff of smoke, a bright light, and in the blink of an eye, they were transported to a world unlike anything Russ had ever seen. The sky was this strange but beautiful purplish hue. The clouds were happy and sort of smiled back at you. The sun was a sparkling orangey orb. The birds flew backwards and chirped kind of odd. The green in the trees was greener than green. It stretched across rolling hills all the way down to this stream. The blue in the stream was bluer than blue. The weirder thing was it was also see-through. Do you like to swim? The king asked, throwing off his robe and running towards the water. Of course Russ liked to swim, but he couldn't help asking, Where'd you get that bathing suit? King Shumeewamee looked down at his trunks. Oh, these old things? My mom picked them out for me. Do you like them? Well, sure, Russ answered, but that wasn't really his point. Would you like a pair too? King Shumeewamee asked, snapping his fingers before Russ had time to answer. Again, there was a puff of smoke, a bright light, and in a second blink of an eye, Russ looked down to discover he was wearing a bathing suit nearly identical to King Shumeewamee's. Hey, wait for me! Russ took off after King Shumeewamee, who was already jumping and splashing in the water. I didn't know kings could swim, Russ told King Shumeewamee when he caught up to him. King Shumeewamee suddenly stopped splashing. Why shouldn't kings be allowed to swim? King Shumeewamee seemed shocked by this thought. I think kings should be allowed to swim too, Russ said quickly. Oh, good. King Shumeewamee resumed his splashing. Then I'm sure you'll be interested in meeting my friend Lester. Before Russ could get out the words, Who's Lester?, a giant see-through fish came jumping out of the stream. It seemed impossible that something so large could come from something as shallow and narrow as the blue see-through stream. Russ didn't have time to think about that for too long, because something even more impossible was happening before his eyes. See-through Lester swam to shore, then lay down on his side and started spreading suntan lotion all over his fins.
A megalamphidus can never be too careful, Lester explained, putting on a pair of sunglasses. A mega what? Russ asked. A fish, Lester said. King Shumeewamee came walking towards them from the stream. Well, I see you and Lester have already met, he said, shaking the water from his ears and placing his crown back on his head at just the right angle. Do you live here? Russ asked. In this stream? King Shumeewamee was surprised by the suggestion. No, not in the stream. Here. Russ spread his arms to include everything around him. Live here? King Shumeewamee repeated. He more than lives here, Lester contributed. Shumeewa is my kingdom, King Shumeewamee said.